My question's about habit, which is something that you mentioned right near the end of the last part of the session. When there's a habit or a pattern that you're trying to break, trying being the operative word, where you sometimes manage to catch yourself, sometimes you don't, sometimes you take off with the reaction kind of thing that you were talking about. I guess I'm looking for a way to circumvent.
Well, there is a way.
Okay.
There is a way, and there's only one way, because if you wait until you are in the action mode before you try to turn it around, then you have to use willpower, and often there's so much momentum going that your willpower just doesn't stand up. You can't buck your own current. So the key is to catch it at earlier, more subtle stages, when it's a vibration that you could shift, or an emotion that you could shift, or even a thought that you could shift. We were talking about the thoughts turning to things, and we were talking about when that inspiration comes and that idea, and then the ideas come. Well, that momentum is hard to stop too. In other words, you cannot stop either positive or negative momentum. The analogy that we've used through the years is when Esther's surprised at being in San Francisco for the first time and seeing those streets, and they were at the top of a street and looking down, and we said, imagine that your car is at the top of one of these streets in San Francisco, and just for information purposes, you decide that you're going to take your car out of gear and release the parking brake and just nudge it a little to see what happens. Well, you are pretty sure of what's going to happen, because momentum is going to take that car faster and faster down into the sea. But if right as you began it, you realized what was happening in the early subtle stages, so you got out in front of it and you just let your car bump up against you a little, it would stop easily, but you wouldn't want to be at the bottom of the hill trying to stop it. And so it's the same sort of thing. A belief is a thought that you continue to think. So once you have a belief about something, usually there is a strong momentum about it. And those beliefs don't change immediately. So rather than trying to change the belief, if you just give more airtime to things that you prefer, after a while, the momentum of the unwanted belief will just dissolve. It will just become inactive. And so when you're thinking about beliefs or you're thinking about momentum, think about what generates the momentum. Think about what is the basis of it. And if you cease doing that, then it will cease to be active. And when it stops being active, then it will stop having any pulling power for you. So it really is about, as Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Turn your attention to what is wanted, and the unwanted will dissipate. It's what we meant earlier when we said there's no law of assertion and there's no law of regression. You can't go back. There's only a law of attraction, only a law of inclusion. And when you're turning your attention to it, you are including it because you've activated your vibration. And there really isn't enough willpower to stop that.
So you're talking about practice, like you just keep practicing and then you get to the point where the other lets go?
We're talking about caring about how you feel and choosing better feeling thoughts at the early subtle stages. The way we would approach it if we were standing in your physical shoes. For example, do you want to give us an example of something that you would like the momentum to subside on? You want to give us an example of a habit of thought, belief, or something that you're wanting to change?
I guess one example of like not having something that I wish that someone else had or that I perceive that they have. It might not even be a physical kind of thing or a material thing, but that I perceive that they have emotionally, or I perceive that they have, security.
Them having it makes you more aware that you don't have it.
Right.
Because by comparison, and so when you see them having it, you feel jealousy or envy or disappointment.
Right.
Because you don't have it. So you feel that emotion, and that lets you know, first off, that you are differing from the way your inner being is looking at this. Your inner being does not see you as being deprived of it. Your inner being sees it a different way. So you feel that negative emotion, and then you have one thing and one thing only to do. you want to be able to think about that and feel better. Now, follow our thought about this. Sometimes you can't think about it and feel better because there's so much momentum. You're at the bottom of the hill trying to stop the car. And when you think about it, you can't think about it and feel better. So you have to choose to think about something else. So sometimes you can just think about something else. And just by not thinking about that, your resistance will dissolve, it will dissipate, and then the thought that you are giving your attention to more will become dominant. If it's something that is in your face a lot, if it's something that you just can't get your attention off of, then you must find a way of softening the resistance. And the way you do that is by going general on the subject. Think less about the specifics and more about the generality. For example, you could say something like, law of attraction says I get what I think about. That's a really general statement. And it would make you feel better because your inner being does agree with that. You could think, there have been things that I've wanted that didn't come for a while and then did come. So I know that things can come to me. So that's a more general statement. It's also a statement that your inner being understands and makes often. You could say something like, maybe even that person at one time didn't have it and now they do. That could make you feel better. But when you make a statement that says they've got it and I don't like that they've got it and I don't, now you haven't done anything about dissolving that point of attraction. In fact, you're encouraging more of it. You see what we're getting at? It's easier just to change the subject. That's what you did with your children. Just change the subject, and if you can get them distracted, hold out something shiny over here, and then they're not worried about that horse that they want to get on over there. But if they're really determined about something, then sometimes there's nothing less than them throwing a fit and then getting so tired of crying that they fall asleep before they stop thinking about it. Yes, and you are exactly the same. You are.
I believe that. I believe that we're exactly the same. I mean, when I see a young child and there's something that they desire, something that they see that they want and that they don't have, they make sure they get it somehow, or if not, then they have to figure out a way to be okay with not having that.
Well, if you could start with the subject that creation is all about focus, and emotion is all about focus, and getting what you want is all about focus. But the thing that most of our physical friends, human friends, don't really understand quite in the way that we really want you all to get it is that every subject is two subjects. And just because you're thinking about this thing that you want and you have a smile on your face and you think you're using positive words doesn't mean that you aren't focused upon its absence. If you say, I want more money, are you really a vibrational match to the more money you want, or are you a vibrational match to the money that you don't have? You can't tell by the sentence description only. You can only tell by the way you feel. And so sometimes you have to focus on it for a while to tell how you really feel. And here's the bottom line. How you really feel is what you're really attracting. So you have to find a way of feeling better. We thought that example of Esther on the airplane was a good one because she had some choices. She could have not given them what they wanted, but she would not have been comfortable with that. She wouldn't have been comfortable with the splitting up the family in that way. That was not the path of least resistance for her. So then once she came that far, then she had a choice. I can go up there and be miserable, or I can go up there and be the happy person that I want to be. Better said, I can be happy and go, or I can be unhappy and go. So these are really your only choices, because you cannot change what's going on out there in the world. You can't change the way other people think or feel about things. You can't change the relationship that one other person has with their inner being. So you can't change whether they're happy or sad. You can't change whether they're joyful or angry. You can't change that. You can't stand on your head in enough different ways to accomplish any consistent change in anybody else's attitude. Now here's getting right to what you're talking about. Let's say that what you want revolves around a large sum of money, just as an example. And you see others that seem to be more free with their money than you are, and so you feel uncomfortable about that. Well, you can think about more money coming to you, and you can get involved in how it's going to come and when it's going to come and where it's going to come from. And if you don't have answers to those questions, you're just going to get more antagonistic in your vibration, more envious or more angry or more disappointed. But if you think about the dollars, the money, and what they represent, if you can get thinking about freedom, or you can get thinking about fun, you can shift energetically the subject in yourself immediately. You can't shift the manifestation immediately because the manifestation has some gestation process to do. The manifestation has to wait for you to get ready for it. So it's not likely that the money is just going to drop in your lap right now because you're demanding that you want it. But you could shift your emotion around it. And if we can get your attention about that, if we can convince you that by shifting your emotion, then everything else changes. By shifting your emotion, you begin opening doors, where if you don't shift your emotion, you keep closing doors. Then you just feel better and better. There isn't anything that anyone wants, whether it's a material object or a state of being or a pile of money or a condition. There isn't anything that anybody wants for any reason other than they believe they will feel better in having it. So what we want to convince you is that if you can feel better without having the manifestation, let's say that better. If you can feel better because you've got the vibrational version and the manifested version is still to come, if you can feel better at the early subtle stages, then it will grow to the manifestation. But if you keep needing the manifestation to change so that you can have a reaction to the manifestation, now you do a great disservice to yourself, because that's not how it works, you see. So these are some of the things you could say to yourself in that soothing and bridging process. I really don't know what thought processes this person has experienced in the accomplishing of whatever they've accomplished. I don't know how they feel or what they think. But you can work against yourself by saying they probably inherited it, or they don't really deserve it, or I bet they did something wrong to get it, or it's not fair that they've got it and I don't have it. We're stacking those engines up in opposition. Because your inner being doesn't think any of those things. Your inner being knows that, and this is a powerful statement that we're making specifically to you in light of your specific question and what's going on. Things may not be even, but they are always fair. Because everyone is not evenly thinking about the things that they're thinking about. In other words, if someone is feeling optimistic, more is coming to them than someone who is feeling pessimistic. And it's sure not even, because the optimistic person is having wonderful things happen and the pessimistic person not so much. So it's sure not even, but it sure is fair. Because law of attraction always gives you exactly what you're offering vibrationally. So you cannot have a happy conclusion to an unhappy journey. You just can't do it. You got to find some way of making yourself feel good in this moment. So sometimes people say, Abraham, this is crazy talk. You want me to look at unwanted things and feel good? No, that's not even possible. We want you to look for things that help you feel good. We want you to open your valves so that you can let the good stuff in. It would be like someone saying, okay, I'm going to toast this bread. So here's my toaster. Plunk it down on the cupboard. Here's my bread. Take it out of the wrapper. Put the bread in the toaster. Put the button down. And then wonder why your bread isn't toasting because you haven't plugged it in. And then complain, I did almost everything right. I did most of it right. I did most everything right. We say, well, plug it in. You got to hook up to the current. You got to hook up to the current before the good things that you want can come to you. No, I don't feel like doing that right now. And we say, you got to start feeling like you want to feel good, because if you're not feeling good, good stuff can't come. It defies the law of attraction, which manages everything in the universe. Helpful?
Oh my, yes. Thank you so much.